helping you fast through the holy month of Ramadan. This is Ramadan 87.9 FM, feeding your soul while your body fasts.
Ramadan Mubarak from Adam Accounting Services.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Need help with your accounts and tax work?
Contact us today on 01908 692 380 and see how we can help.
Adam Accounting Services, friendly local accountants. Call us today on 01908 692 380.
Where there is extreme poverty, there are always orphaned and abandoned children. Every 2.2 seconds, a child loses a parent somewhere in the world. There are over 200 million orphaned children worldwide. Muslim Global Relief provides education to help orphaned children develop the skills they need, making positive changes in their life and breaking them free from poverty. Awarded the UK's Best Muslim Charity of the Year. Make a 100% zakat donation. Visit muslimglobalrelief.org.
Families Relief are working on a special Ramadan program that needs your help and support. Whether you would like to donate zakat, sadaqah, fidya or fitrana, your Ramadan donations will help us distribute food and clean water to impoverished families in needy countries like Pakistan, Yemen, Syria, Palestine and Africa. Help us to help them survive this Ramadan. Donate now on 0114 365 4454 or go online to familiesrelief.org.uk. Together we can save lives.
Waffles, crepes, cookie dough, ice cream, just what you need after a long day of fasting. Dessert Island is open until 1 a.m. during Ramadan, 7 days a week, and there is free parking at the rear. Come and see us at 116 to 118 Queensway, Bletchley. We can even deliver. Just visit dessert-island.co.uk or download the app.
Welcome to Banter on Bikes with your host Zab
and your co-host Sophie. We cover a range of interesting topics, all through the lens of a Muslim cyclist.
Every Saturday and Sunday, 5:30 to 6 p.m. on Ramadan FM.
Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a blessed month. This is Mo Khan asking you to stay locked in to Ramadan FM in Milton Keynes.
For a list of all our sponsors, please visit ramadanfm.com.
Ramadan, 87.9 FM.
Welcome to the Ramadan Reading Retreat with Aisha, Rumaisa and Sherza.
Flip away from life's distractions, grab a cup of tea, and let's delve into this week's cozy conversations.
Come on in. Assalamu alaikum, lovely listeners, and welcome to the fourth and sadly final episode this Ramadan 2021 of Ramadan Reading Retreat. And of course, as usual, I have my wonderful co-hosts with me, Sherza and Aisha, again in the virtual studio. The topic for today is reading, writing, and the Muslim voice. And we've spoken a lot about reading over the past few episodes, but this week we really wanted to focus in on writing. And in this show, we are going to be talking about that. And we are going to have a wonderful special guest speaker, Dr Tamara Gray from America, who is a scholar, a writer, a translator, and a publisher, and just a really uplifting and inspiring speaker as well. Our book of the week for this week is Bird Summons by Layla Abul Ela, who is actually a Scottish writer. And we will be having one of our friends on the show as well, who will be talking about her experiences of setting up her own book club. So hopefully that will inspire you guys to take away something from the show, maybe set up a book club or get involved in reading or writing beyond this show and beyond Ramadan. And so you can text in on our WhatsApp line, the number to which is 07591 970 241. And our question of the week is, what is something you've enjoyed about our show? Or what's something you've taken away from the show, really, or learned from the show? And just a reminder, the WhatsApp line number again is 07591 970 241. So our topic for today, reading, writing, and the Muslim voice, is all about amplifying Muslim voices in literature. Something we have talked about on previous shows, but again, as I mentioned, we wanted to focus in on it for this show. And some of the questions we're going to be raising and discussing are: what makes literature Islamic? What does it mean to have good Islamic representation? And what should Muslims' approach be to writing? And hopefully we'll be taking on some of these issues and trying to discuss them in our show today. And very topically, I found a quote from from the writer of the book that we're discussing today, Bird Summons by Layla Abu Layla. And in the interview, she says, "There are many Muslim writers, and they're writing different sorts of Muslim novels. Many of these writers prefer to be considered nationally as a Pakistani writer or an Egyptian writer. I do feel that I'm like them. I'm a Sudanese writer. But for me, instead of having Islam as a culture, I'm consciously presenting it as a faith." So that's just something for you guys to think about as we have our show today. And now I will pass you on to Aisha, who will be introducing our book, Bird Summons by Layla Abu Layla, a wonderful piece of fiction this week. And I think this is our first proper dive into fiction, actually, in the course of this show. So with that, I'll pass you on to Aisha.
Okay, so this week, our final week, we read, like Ramaisa just mentioned, Bird Summons by Layla Abu Layla. Before we get into our discussion of the book, we just wanted to share a lovely message and synopsis of the book from Abu Layla herself. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and best wishes for Ramadan. Here is a short description of my novel Bird Summons. 3 women go on a road trip to visit the grave of Lady Evelyn Cobbold, the first European woman to perform Hajj. The 3 women are Muslim, Arab, and they move to live in Britain at some point in their lives. They see themselves as good, observant Muslims, but even within their conventional lives, there is a danger of wandering astray. Salma has no intention of having an adulterous affair with Amr and feels safe flirting with him long distance. She is taking the first steps in ruining her marriage and by extension the happy life she had built up. Moni believes she is a wonderful mother, sacrificing all for her disabled son, but in doing so she is neglecting her husband and ultimately being unfair to herself. Iman feels justified in rebelling and taking off her hijab, but she learns that total uninhibited freedom is impossible for humans. There will always be the need for maturity and a sense of responsibility. So Jazakallah khair to Layla Abu Layla for that wonderful description. Okay, so Bird Summons is set in Scotland, like Ramaisa mentioned, and it follows these women as they journey to Inverness, as Abu Layla focuses on 3 women seeking out a connection to this 4th woman, who is a Scottish Muslim woman. Ultimately, the person they do end up connecting with is themselves. It is this inner journey and pilgrimage of sorts that becomes the most fruitful. The book falls into a magical realism sequence which overlaps myth with morals in a very intentional but fantastical way. I would have to say that this was the most surprising element of the book, as there is quite a purposeful shift in the tone as things start getting more fascinating and a little bit stranger and like weirder. As for the title, Bird Summons, this perhaps comes from the Hopo bird, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is a bird we also see mentioned in the Holy Quran. And that kind of goes back to the quote that Ramaisa just said. Abu Layla likes to show Islam as a faith. In Surah An-Naml, which is the story of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, the story of the Hopo highlights the faithfulness and intelligence of this bird, who was within the army of Prophet Sulaiman. But Abu Layla in her text utilizes the Hopo when it comes to visit Iman and share stories of morals. So my question for Ramais and Shares was, did you guys enjoy that aspect of the novel, of the bird coming in and sharing these stories?
Yeah, personally, I really enjoyed it. I thought that the bird coming in to tell those stories made this Islamic literature. And as Rumaisa mentioned at the start, part of our discussion is going to be around like what makes Islamic literature, like what is Islamic literature. And I thought that aspect did make it Islamic literature because it told like stories maybe from the Quran, it told stories that are related to really spiritual elements of religion. So I really enjoyed the bird there. And I think after every like bird story section, I really had to take a few minutes just to reflect on what the meaning of the story was. It was kind of a bit abstract, which I really enjoyed about the kind of story of this book. And I also like the fact that this book, as you mentioned, was surrounded by like centered around 3 women. So you got an insight into each woman, and every one of these women was really different. Like even though they were all maybe, I think this is quite relevant. Like they were all from maybe other parts of the world, and they kind of migrated to the UK. I feel like whenever we see like Muslims in the media, they kind of have like one image of a Muslim, and that's like what a Muslim is. But every single one of these women were from completely different parts of the world. Had completely different cultures. They had completely different family dynamics. They had different jobs, and it kind of just showed how diverse Muslims are. But just going back to my original point about the bird, I really liked having the bird there because it kind of gave this fourth perspective. Each of the women, none of them was perfect. I think that relates to like human nature. Like we aren't perfect as humans, and they were all going through maybe different struggles. And they had like different morals at several points of the book, but the bird just gave that like continuous same kind of moral compass, which I really enjoyed about having the hoopoe bird there.
Yeah, I would really agree 100% with what Sheza said. And, you know, the kind of deep metaphors within the hoopoe's story, like I would really agree, they really made me reflect as well. And of course, the most famous story within the Muslim world that does feature around a hoopoe after it's mentioned in the Quran is of course the Conference of the Birds by Farid Uddin Attar. And again, that book is a quest-like journey of the birds kind of coming to know themselves. And again, in that story, there are challenges and barriers along the way to them reaching their final destination. And only the ones who've got what it takes manage to succeed in the end. So I think this was a really good kind of modern reimagining of that story and a really creative approach to that story, taking on some of the same themes and some of the same elements, but kind of making it applicable to the modern day. So if you're a fan of Fariduddin Attar's Conference of the Birds, I would really recommend this book. But as well as kind of that rooting in the Islamic world, we also had some instances where you could really tell this was a story set in Scotland. For example, we did have flashbacks or those kind of sequences with the birds, but we also had sequences in a monastery where there were monks who had worshipped for thousands of years over there. And again, there were kind of flashbacks into the past going on with that. So I thought it was really imaginative and creative the way Layla Abu Layla managed to weave together time and space and kind of managed to create a bridge between different worlds in this book.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with what you just said there, Ramaisa. I think the landscape and the kind of melding of time is really kind of a fantastical plot device that Abu Layla uses as well. And you mentioned the Conference of the Birds, and when I was looking into just doing some background research, I think she was partly inspired by that. I think it's a poem, right? Yeah, so she was partly inspired by that. And as Sharza mentioned in her little discussion, it's kind of safe to say that the female relationship and the dynamics of sisterhood are a really important takeaway within this novel, especially as we're witnessing the experiences of immigrant Muslim women from different backgrounds, different life experiences, and different problems and concerns. The book is totally focused on the thoughts, ideas, and most importantly, like I said, the experiences of Muslim women. But I feel like it's their struggles and the manner in which they're contending with these struggles, which I thought was quite important for a Muslim reader. It just showed that none of us are immune as humans and as creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not immune from sinning and struggle. And it was fascinating to think about which elements detracted them from their goals, and it wasn't always what you'd accept. Or expect, sorry. So a great question which was raised in our discussion was, when did we last reach out to someone that was struggling, and how do you even recognize if one of our friends is struggling? Our relationship with Allah is quite personal, but we also have bonds and ties with one another. And as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tells us, we're kind of influenced by the faith of our friends, and our friendships are really significant to our iman, and we can see this throughout this novel too. So I kind of want to throw this back to you guys again. Do you guys have any thoughts about this, about how you would reach out to someone that was struggling, and how do you guys even recognize if one of your friends is struggling?
I think this is such an important thing to bring up, especially maybe during lockdown, with us being in lockdown for maybe like over a year now, not continuously, of course, but in and out, and also with the fact that it is Ramadan. And faith is something that is fluctuating, and sometimes you'll be at like a really good point, and then sometimes you're maybe not doing as well. So it's always really important to check in on people, check in on them, like how they're doing mentally, spiritually, and physically, of course. And we will be talking about like loneliness and stuff later on in the show, and the importance of a community. But how do we recognise if a friend is struggling? Maybe if they aren't speaking as much as they used to. And I think it was always easier to kind of recognise these things when you meet people in person, because you notice like mannerisms, you notice someone maybe is a bit distant, like they're there and they're not there. And I feel that through a screen it's maybe easier to pretend that, oh, I'm okay, like don't worry, or just kind of, if you go off the screen, you might just be needing some time off social media, you might be completely fine. So it's something that is so important. I think just checking in on people, and of course that takes a lot of maybe effort from your side as well, but just maybe once a week being like, hey, like, how are you? I haven't spoken to you in a while. Or maybe if you're doing an activity you used to do with a particular friend, but of course you're doing alone now because of maybe COVID restrictions, just be like, hey, I did this. Remember when we did this that one time? How are you? Maybe we should call soon. Maybe we should meet up soon if restrictions allow. Just keep checking in on each other. And I think if someone just makes someone feel comfortable enough that they maybe, if they are struggling, they would go to you and they'd be open to speaking to you as well.
Yeah, completely agree with what you said, Sherza, and I'd just like to add that, to kind of reach out and be looking out for our friends, we've got to be really proactive, and we've got to kind of embody this sense of being a person of real concern. When we, have our relationships, that they shouldn't just be a kind of like, what can I get out of this relationship kind of thing. We should instead be thinking what we can do for the other person. And as well as that, trying to always honor the guests of our heart. Sometimes people just kind of come into our minds for a minute, or we remember something we did with them last year or something like that, and then we just think, oh yeah, that's a nice memory. But instead, try and honor that guest of your heart. Send them a quick message, just give them a ring. And as well as that, try and pray regularly for your friends. I think that definitely does make a big difference. And as well as that, just having a kind of emotional intelligence and trying to be perceptive. Sometimes they might send a message that gives a clue into how they're actually feeling, or sometimes around exam times or difficult times like that, I think that's the time when I just like to go through my contacts and think, is there anyone I haven't spoken to for a while, anyone who might be struggling? And just reaching out to people and not being afraid. Sometimes if we haven't spoken to someone in a while, we might think, oh, it's been a few weeks, it's been a few months, maybe it's been too long, maybe I shouldn't just text them out of the blue. But I think we should always go for it. Always just say hello, see how people are doing. You know, you can't go wrong with that. So that's the advice I would give.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with both of you guys more in what you just said there, especially because I think sometimes we forget that we're able to notice patterns in our friends. Like we know like deep down, especially if you're really close to someone, alhamdulillah, you can really see, you know what they're like, and you can kind of notice like little changes in their tone if you're talking to them maybe on the phone, or even if they're like texting is not normal to maybe what you guys are used to, and just being able to reach out to them and for them to know that they do have, a physical person there and that they can rely on and as a support. And I really love what you said, Ramaisa, about, when somebody comes into your heart, into your mind, be sure to reach out to them because that is just something that is quick and easy to do, especially for us in this day. Sometimes it does feel a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if you haven't spoke to them for a while or, you know, but definitely go out because what is like the worst thing that can happen? They don't reply. And I don't think that's a really big at the end of the day, I don't think that's such a big problem if they don't, because at least you'll feel better just about reaching out to them and kind of just seeing how they are. So, in our notes for this text, I'm not sure if it was Sharza or Ramaisa, so I do apologise for not giving note taker props. Mentioned how this book is not a text they would recommend for Ramadan due to the heavier themes it deals with, and I couldn't agree more. This text, although dealing and addressing with these um, issues and topics that affect a large number of Muslim women, are, like we said, quite heavy. And during Ramadan, it is best to keep your mind, your thoughts, and your soul just light and at ease. And sometimes reading texts which venture and delve really heavily into these struggles and into the struggling experiences a person is having with their creator, even though it is fictional, can be quite heavy on our soul and mind. And with this in mind, we can kind of reflect on what Rumaisa was asking earlier. What is Islamic literature? And do you guys feel that this is Islamic literature?
Yeah, I definitely would say that this is Islamic literature, although as Aisha mentioned, it does deal with heavy themes such as, extramarital affairs, guilt, and other pride and other maybe wrong actions. I think the way the author handles these topics sensitively and wisely, and the fact that there's always a moral undertone to what she's saying, and the fact that the wrong actions are not condoned as an expression of independence or as being true to yourself or some of these slogans that we hear nowadays. Instead, it's kind of recognized that these are things that, these women are doing, but there's always that kind of little voice there saying this isn't the right thing to do. For example, one of the characters, she's doing a wrong action, and one of the objects related to that really starts to smell, and everyone around her can smell this horrible stink coming off it, but she can't. And I think this just shows how the author has handled some of these topics, and the fact that there is a consequence to the character's wrong actions, and also the fact that this book recognizes that the characters are in a journey to try and overcome these kind of problems and these character flaws that they're currently having to go through. And of course, the author will have to establish that they exist in the first place for them to overcome them. But it's really about the journey to overcoming them rather than accepting them as the status quo. And I do think that Islamic literature doesn't always have to be, unicorns and fairies and rainbows and everything just going fine and dandy all the time. We should be adventurous and we should be courageous. We shouldn't be afraid to tackle the big things. But what makes it Islamic is our approach to those topics and how we present them to the reader. What did you think, Sherza?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I mentioned this before already. It's a bit of like moving on to this next thing. But yeah, like Islamic literature doesn't have to be something that pretends that all Muslims are perfect, because we aren't, and everyone goes through like their own struggles and everyone has their own difficulties. And I think this book really exemplified that in such a good way. Like every woman in the book had like a completely different kind of struggle that they were going through, and they dealt with it as a friendship group at the end, and the way they dealt with it was good, and it showed like it had that recognition that what they were feeling or what they were doing was wrong, and they knew it was wrong. And I think that just shows like the struggles we face as Muslims, like every day. Like we won't always be like at the top end of like our man, but it's about recognizing this and about the fact that you can fix it, and it's not too late to fix it.
Yeah, definitely. And even their relationships with each other. Like, I wouldn't say they, like, although they had strong bonds of sisterhood, there were definitely ups and downs throughout. But they never allowed their disagreements to kind of threaten their friendship at a deeper level as well.
Definitely. And it's quite humorous as well, just to watch them kind of connect with each other and talk these like disagreements out as well, and how they all react to them. So overall, I think it's suffice to say that all three of us found this text quite wonderful. And personally, I think so. Moving on to what we usually do, who would we recommend this text to? Just quickly, I think this text would be great for anybody kind of enjoys like mythical or magical or fantastical inner journeys, and with like really strong moral discussions, or for somebody who just enjoys like a really beautiful Scottish landscape. We didn't get to mention much of that in our discussion. I think Ramisa mentioned it earlier, but the landscape and setting are wonderful in this text. What about you guys? Do you have anyone you would recommend it for?
Just completely agree with you, Aisha. I think like it was a really good fictional story with some strong moral undertones. So I would really recommend it for people who do like maybe a nice light fictional story, but also something they can think about. It doesn't have like much dramatic action in it, but I do prefer that in my book. So if you're someone who does like just a nice story that gives you some like lessons, gives you some food for thought, this is for you. And even though it does have a bit of like mystical and strange happenings at the end, it was quite realistic for the most part as well. So you can definitely take something away from it.
Yeah, I would recommend this book to readers who are interested in Islamic spirituality, just because of the kind of personal development and the spiritual struggles that these women faced. I would also recommend this book to people who are interested in British Islam, not just because of the beautiful Scottish Highland setting, but also because this book does touch on the social landscape of kind of the role or the place of Islam in modern Britain as well. And because it is such a good, captivating piece of fiction, I think it can also serve as a role in dawah. I think a lot of non-Muslims who just enjoy reading fiction, maybe who are interested in magical realism, which does center in this book, which was at times a little bit surprising or a little bit, sometimes it took me aback, the magical realism elements, but I see what the writer was doing with that. So yeah, so as I was saying, I think non-Muslims would really enjoy reading this book as well if they are interested in those kind of gritty magical realism, or just books that are about like female characters and personal development of characters. So that's who I would recommend the book to.
Great. So that was our overview of Bird Summons by Leila Abulela. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, if she's listening in. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's texted in. Our question of the week was, what have you enjoyed about our show? What did you like about it? and will you miss our show? Like, just tell us your thoughts. And we have gotten a few responses. We got some comments on Facebook. So someone just said, mashallah, and you can see that on the screen now. A few people text in via our WhatsApp line, which is on the screen on Facebook. If you're not watching via Facebook or YouTube, the WhatsApp is 07591970241. Or if you're watching through the FM website, you can press the WhatsApp icon to text in and tell us what you think about our show and what you have been thinking about it. If you haven't watched the past few shows, please don't worry, we're not offended. Just tell us what you think about today's show. And we have gotten a few responses in. So someone said, the thing I've enjoyed most about the show is learning that youngsters still read books. Thank you for that. We do still read books. We're quite avid readers, and I don't think I've been referred to as a youngster in a long time since I've stopped going outside for my morning walk. So thank you for that. Someone else texted in and they said, Assalamu alaikum, great show, love listening to it and miss it lots. Thank you. I love the episode about the Syria and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Thank you so much for that. Please do keep texting us in, guys. Tell us what you think about our shows, what you thought about them, and maybe what your favourite moment was. And we will see you after the break, where we will talk about book clubs, communities, and we will have our exclusive interview from Dr Tamara Gray. Stay tuned.
To all of our wonderful listeners of RFM, thank you so much for your support. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless each and every one of you during this blessed month of Ramadan. Stay locked for more amazing shows. Amazing shows. Amazing shows.
Ramadan Mubarak from Caprino's Pizza. After a long day of fasting, order our delicious pizzas, sides, cookies, and much more to break your fast. During this Ramadan, we are offering 15% off if you order online, as well as free delivery, plus special offers if you collect. You can order from Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, and our website, caprinospizza.co.uk. For more details, contact 01908 675 947 or visit North 10th Street, Lloyd's Court, Milton Keynes City Centre, MK9 3EL.
German Doner Kebab wishes you Ramadan Kareem. Enjoy your doner after dusk with us and choose from the original Doner Kebab, the KCAL, the Doner Crunch Burger, or perhaps the Boss Box and so much more. You can find your nearest GDK at GermanDonerKebab.com or bring the Ramadan experience to your doorstep by signing up for your Ramadan pack at RamadanTentProject.com. German Doner Kebab. Kebabs done right.
Allah has bestowed us with another Ramadan. Its days are the perfect time to help the suffering Ummah with our supplications and our charitable giving. Make the difference with UK charity Ummah Welfare Trust by supporting its emergency, development and Ramadan programs. We are part of the Ummah, and the Ummah is a part of us. So be generous and donate for our brothers and sisters this Ramadan.
Come and visit us at Al Ansar and find fantastic deals on food and drink. At Al Ansar, we specialize in Asian groceries and HMC halal meat. We stock products from all over the world and have everything you need this Ramadan, from big packs of rice, flour and oil to dates, treats and snacks. You can find at 153 Queens Way in Bletchley or call us on 01908 411 334.
रहमत अजीम के मेहमान अस्सलाम कुरान के नज़ूल के सामान अस्सलाम रमज़ान अस्सलाम ए रमज़ान अस्सलाम अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं हूँ काशिफ रज़ा और मैं ला रहा हूँ उर्दू शो काशिफ रज़ा के साथ हर बुध की शाम 6 से 7 के दरमियान हर हफ्ते एक नए मेहमान के साथ ज़रूर शिरकत कीजिएगा। अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
You might take a lot of wrong turns before you find the right path. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Right is right, even if no one is doing it. But if you take the wrong turn, come back quickly. Stay with me in this blessed month through Light the Right Path with Happiness, every Sunday from 1:30 to 2 p.m. May Allah accept all our good deeds. Ini Al-Qadari.
For a list of all our sponsors, please visit ramadanfm.com.
Ramadan, 87.9 FM.
Welcome to the Ramadan Reading Retreat with Aisha, Rumaisa and Sherza.
Flip away from life's distractions, grab a cup of tea, and let's delve into this week's cozy conversations.
Come on in.
Okay, welcome back everyone to the Ramadan Reading Retreat final show today on Amplifying the Muslim Voice, the importance of community and the importance of starting community groups and checking up on your friends as well. During the first half of our show, we discussed Muslim writers, Muslim readers, and we will delve more into that in this half. The first half of our show was basically about Bird Summons by Layla Abu Layla. And we're really excited for you to maybe listen back to our shows maybe once we're done and have a think about these books and maybe read a bit more in the coming few months. Maybe you're inspired by our show. And before the break, I also asked you what your favourite thing about our show was or what you thought about it in past shows or today's shows. And we've received a few more texts in, so thank you to everyone who has been texting. And we got a lovely message saying, Salam, it's been a good programme and very insightful. Well done for all your effort, girls, preparing and delivering the show. Eid Mubarak in advance. P.S. Hope we will all do it in the same day, inshallah. Inshallah, we will do it in the same day because, as we've already mentioned in our show, it's so important to kind of have that community feel, check up on each other. And Eid is all about coming together to celebrate a really special Muslim holiday. And we kind of spoke about the importance of Eid last week when we talked about Once Upon a Eid, which is a collection of short stories for children, but also for adults if you want a bit of an easier read, a bit of a more fun read before bed. So throughout our shows, we've really been discussing a lot of themes to do with like reading, writing. Today's show's about amplifying the Muslim voice. We spoke about the transformational power of reading. We spoke about the importance of having more Muslim writers in the industry, the importance of representation. We spoke about our Ramadan reading lists. We spoke about seerahs as well. And we got a really nice interview from Dr. Tamara Gray, who kind of relates to these themes and kind of speaks a bit more about them. And again, she is a really inspirational speaker. So it's really been an honour getting this exclusive interview from her. So I'll pass it over to Rumaisa, who'll introduce Dr. Tamara Gray, and during the interview please still feel free to text us in, tell us what you thought about our show, tell us about any other thoughts, and yes, speak to you soon. I'll pass it over to Rumaisa now.
Assalamu alaikum. So Sheikha Anse Dr. Tamara Gray is the founder of Rabata, an organization dedicated to promoting positive cultural change through creative educational experiences. She holds a doctorate in leadership, a master's degree, and has spent 20 years studying traditional and classical Islamic sciences in Damascus. She is an author, translator, and public speaker, with her publications ranging from several culturally appropriate English language curriculum programs to translations of sacred texts. Her book, Joy Jots, is in its second print, and she often tackles issues of gender, leadership, Islam, spirituality, locally, nationally, and globally. She's also a founder of Daybreak Press. So with that, I'll pass on to answer Dr. Tamara Gray.
Reading and writing are fundamental and foundational to a Muslim's life, no matter at what age. And as a believer, one of the most important things we can do is read. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in revealing the Quran to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, began with the word Iqra. Iqra. And this is not something to be taken lightly. Our approach to reading should be such that we understand that everywhere there is writing, there is something to learn. And everywhere there is writing, there is a place to grow. Now, when I say everywhere, there are things that are not beneficial for us. And unfortunately, I will use the word unfortunately, we can't read everything that's ever been published or written. Sometimes if you see me going into the bookstore, you might think that I actually believe differently, because I'll walk out of every bookstore with a big pile of books that I'm sure I'm going to read right away. And there's so many beautiful things out there that we can read that are that can be beneficial for us, that a believer should avoid reading that which takes them down a path where they maybe shouldn't be, let's say. And there are certain things that we all know that are written about that, I guess I'll just be clear. I'm speaking mostly about scenes of intimacy in books that stimulate a place that a believer shouldn't be putting themselves in that position. But with the exception of such things, everything else can be read and learned, and we can benefit from. That being said, when we talk about Muslims and what we should write, we really need to be writing. You know, a long time ago, I used to teach English. That was my day job. And I used to also travel and train English teachers around the Arab world. And I developed a little mission statement for myself about why am I teaching Arabs how to teach English when I'm a very big believer in the importance of the Arabic language. And my personal mission statement was that we need to have access to the world of information, and that's knowing enough English and Arabic. And we have to learn how to read in Arabic so we have access to the world of information of our heritage books. But also we need access to the world of information, because I think the statistic is something like 80 or 90% of scientific information, modern information, is in the English language. But we also need to contribute to it. We don't only want access to the world of information, we want to contribute to the world of information. And we also want to contribute to the world of culture and how people see themselves and how they see one another. And when we think about literature, literature includes fiction, it includes mystery, it includes romance. Romance can be clean. Romance could be something that builds a life, a very happy family life. Why not? If Muslims are writing, you know, there's an enormous genre of romance in the Amish tradition. I've never read any of them, but my assumption is that they're very clean. They're very popular with faithful Christians. Muslims need to be writing all sorts of things, including literature that frames our faith in a both normative sense and also a positive sense. One of the real tragedies that I think exists is that when you read, I have read a number of books with Muslims as characters, and one of the worst things is that, believe it or not, more often than not, the problem in the plot is the main character's religion. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Or the character being Muslim is a terrorist or some other of this sort of ridiculous Islamophobic stuff. So, and as Muslims, we need to become really good writers, because we want to write the best stuff. I remember when Harry Potter first came out, I was living in Damascus, and I read the first one when it first came out, and I was really jealous. And what I was jealous of was J.K. Rowling's ability to build a world that everyone wanted to go to. And I thought, where is our creative Muslim writer that can write a story that is so good that everyone wants to go there into that space that is a space of Muslims? And I want that. I want that for our children. I want that for our adults. You know, I want that for peoples of other faiths. So they can say to themselves, oh, I wish I could go to that castle in Samarkand or whatever, in that place where I can meet Muslims and hang out with them and do fun and these interesting things they're doing. And it doesn't have to be a fantasy type of novel. Another world that when I was a child, I really wanted to go into was the Little House on the Prairie world, that pioneering world. It's really about good writing. It's about high quality writing. And what we need to be doing as Muslim writers is paying attention to how we write, becoming excellent writers. We shouldn't be satisfied with mediocre writing. We should be excellent writers, and we want to write excellent books and amazing books. And we want to be writing literature, because literature transforms culture. I think that information books are very important. We need to write creative nonfiction. We need to write fiction. We need to write academic books that are well written, that are part of the world of knowledge production. We need to write books that are available for all peoples, Muslims and peoples of other faiths. And we need to be doing this with intentionality. One of the things we do at Daybreak Press, or one of the things we've done, is we've published a number of novels. And each novel is so unique. One of them, and just to show you the way I think about the importance of literature, one of the novels is called Sophie's Journal. And this is actually kind of a combination of fantasy and history, because the main character ends up in Kansas in a historical place, but she's a Muslim from modern times. And so she brings her normative Muslim self back into American history. And it's actually a wonderful book to teach history with. There's a teacher here in Minnesota who teaches in the public schools who is using it in his classroom to teach American history. And it just so happens to be that the main character is a Muslim. I mean, how great is that? How great is that to both uplift the Muslim kids in class and also the peoples of other faiths in the class? I brought that, the author and I went to a school one day and we brought that book to class, and just to sort of talk for a minute about what it means to receive a book where you can see yourself, like diverse books. Books for diverse audiences and diverse books are often spoken about in two ways. And one of them is to be able to see yourself in the book. And I was a witness to this. We brought this book to this Minneapolis public school. In the Minneapolis public school system, 10% of the students are Muslim. This particular class, it was more than 10%. I don't know the exact percentage. Lots of Muslim kids there. And we did the teacher rookie mistake, even though I've been in education for 20, 30 some years. We handed out the books before we told the kids what to do. So now we had kids opening books and looking at pages. And I was just like, oh man, get your head back in the classroom. But the amazing thing was, right at the table at the front, young Muslim boy, there's some young girl who's a Muslim character, but nonetheless, young Muslim boy opens up the book. He's looking around, and in the book, she says at some point, Bismillah maybe, or Salam Alaikum, something like that. And it says it in Arabic in there. And he took a look at that and he jabbed his friend a big sort of 11-year-old buddy jab, and said, hey, oh my God, look at this. This book says Bismillah. This book says Salam Alaikum. He couldn't believe it. He was seeing part of his life in that book, and his motivation to read the book went through the roof. Now, the other audience that is really important, reads diverse books, are people of not that population. So, for example, our white Christian majority community in the United States needs to be reading stories about Black experiences, about Hispanic experiences, and about Muslim experiences. And so Sophie's Journal also offers that because it's about the American experience. But we also have Pieces, which is a book. Now this is, you'll see, it's such a different experience because here we have a book that addresses the issue of mental health. And what's happening here is that a Muslim family is a normative family that is dealing with a mental health issue, which so many people are dealing with today. And their religion is their nourishment, but it's also not a dogmatic or didactic book that tries to claim that if only they would have been more religious, they would have been okay. That, mental health wouldn't have affected them. No, it's a book that with hospital visits, and you get into the head of the character that has mental health issues. And it's a very powerful book. But again, it does that thing of both letting your Muslim audience feel seen, and also the audience of those who are peoples of other faiths feel like there is a normative interaction with the Muslim community, and that immediately will make them feel more comfortable when they're interacting with Muslims in their regular life. We have another book called An Acquaintance, again, completely different. It's not an actual romance, because in the actual definition of a romance, it doesn't 100% fit. But I will say that it walks that line, and it's about emotional feelings and feelings of attraction, and teenagers who are dealing and managing with this, and sort of trying to find a balance between their religious life and their feelings for people of the other opposite sex, and how they feel about how they interact with it. And in this book is a book that is really, I believe the author was writing it for the Muslim community. But so definitely that diverse audience of Muslim kids is going to see themselves and enjoy it. But what I've really found interesting is that some of the teachers who have brought this into their public school classrooms, the children of other faiths who are not Muslim really enjoyed reading this book, especially those who have a faith and are working to work out, how do I live my life with my faith as they're making their teenage decisions around it. It's a great book. So these are three things that we've done. And we have I personally wrote a book about creative nonfiction, in the genre of creative nonfiction. Now, creative nonfiction can be motivational. Mine is 52 essays. It's called Joy Jots, Exercises for a Happy Heart. I think this is an important genre. It's a very big genre in the United States. I know we buy motivational books. We buy all these things, 168 Hours, Atomic Habits, and all this stuff. Well, let's dig deep and find our motivation in good writing that is connected to the Quran and Sunnah and our tradition. So I really think as Muslims, it's really critical that we become excellent writers and that we enter into this world of literature and writing in a sense that we understand the transformational power of it. Because it does transform culture, it does transform attitudes, and it does transform society. Now, with that being said, we want to think about what is the future of modern Muslim writing. I really think the future is bright. We have a lot of Muslims out there that have found their pen, so to speak, in that they are starting to write. I really want to encourage more of that. I think that in publishing as well, we have more Muslim publishers who are publishing books that are of high quality. A lot of people say, people don't want print books anymore. They just want ebooks. Well, ebooks are great. That's a book. Audiobooks are great. That's a book. But I think the future of print books is the art book. It's a beautiful book with a beautiful cover, a book that sits on our shelf and beckons to us. And once we've read it, we look at it again and we're reminded of that message. I don't think print books will go out of style, at least not in my house, they won't. I think they're really important. And I think the way we interact with a print book is different than the way we interact with an ebook or an audiobook. All valuable. And I do think, that being said, that part of Muslim writing is we need to get really good at the different ways that people read. And so we need to be publishing beautiful books. We need to be publishing ebooks. We need to be publishing audiobooks. We need to be thinking about new creative types of reading. And maybe we're going to be publishing some new types of shapes of books even. I don't know. Let's get creative about this and really think about new ways that people can approach books. And as for our young people and for ourselves, so we can all enter into the world of literature in ways that will enrich us and enrich our community, because we are called upon to be the khulafa of the earth. And if we are called upon to be that level of responsibility, we need to take it seriously. And our revelation began with Iqra. And so these are connected. And with reading and writing, we need to bring our Muslim voice to reading and writing literature. And we need to do it with intentionality, and clear understanding of the transformational power of reading and writing in the Muslim voice. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us all do that and do that well. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much to Dr. Tamara Gray for that beautiful 15-minute clip there, which was an exclusive interview just for us about reading, about Muslim writers, about Islamic literature. And I just really loved listening to that there, because it kind of really summarized our past 4 shows in 15 minutes in a much better way, of course, but kind of showed that maybe we did do the right thing for the past 4 weeks. So thanks again to Dr. Tamara Gray for that. We have been asking our listeners, what's been your favorite part of our show? What have you enjoyed about our show? And just to wrap up our show for this year, I want to ask my co-hosts, what has been your favorite part of your what has been your favorite part of our show? What have you gained from it? What have you taken away? Let me know.
I think it's just been a real privilege to have spent these last few weeks really thinking about what the divine command Iqra to read entails. And I think going forward, it probably has changed my relationship with reading for the better. And of course, reading these fabulous books over, during Ramadan and even, before Ramadan, just so I could make sure they were done before the show. And then sharing my thoughts with you guys on the show has been really a real pleasure. But I would say the thing that I've enjoyed or appreciated most about the show has really been the generosity of our guests, who've taken out so much time to plan and send us recordings that have been so thoughtful and so full of wisdom that we've gained so much from. And of course, our listeners as well, who've been tuning into our show. And even today, I think yesterday, I received such a lovely message from one of our friends, and she was just reflecting on one of the books she had read that changed her life and how it led her to, for example, capture the seasons through photography and reflect on the fact that the seasons change and each one brings its unique beauty. So does each period in our lives. And just receiving those kind of messages, it really makes it worthwhile. What about you, Aisha? What have you kind of enjoyed or taken away from doing the show over the past few weeks? Oh, I think Aisha is having some technical difficulties there. Sheza, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I've just, again, it's been like such a privilege to have a platform to kind of discuss your thoughts, have a chat with your friends about books, which we all enjoy reading. But I think we spoke about like how to retain what you've read before, and just discussing it and reflecting on it in a much deeper way has really helped me to retain what I read. And sharing my thoughts with people, I hope we have encouraged some new readers or just some deeper thought, which is really important because, as we heard in that recording there, it's so important to learn to read in Islam and to be those kind of influential people. So I hope our just blabbering on here on the radio for an hour really helped people maybe pick up a book or think about some of the concepts we talked about. Aisha's back on. I'll give her 1 minute just to kind of tell us what she enjoyed about our show, and then inshallah we'll wrap up.
So yeah, in true fashion, my internet just had to kind of go out there. But yeah, I really enjoyed just working with Sharza and Ramaisa every single week and just beforehand putting this show together and then coming onto here and having our discussions. And like hearing from the listeners, I thought that was just really great because it kind of gave us an insight on what you guys were thinking as we were going along. Overall, it's just a very rewarding experience to be an active reader during Ramadan, and then just having the privilege, like Ramaisa said, to be sharing it with people and for people to be listening to our voices. So Jazakallah for that. And yeah, I hope you guys all have had a blessed Eid and blessed Ramadan and continue to do so, and have a wonderful Eid as well.
Thank you for that, Aisha. And we've received one final message, so I think we should read out our final message for this year. Very inspirational talk by our guests. I totally agree with her about the different types of books. I'm old school and nothing beats a good hardback or paperback. I'm not an e-reader or an audio listener. I like to cozy up with a physical book. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to all our listeners throughout Ramadan who have tuned into our show, who have participated, who have actively engaged with us, told us what they think, or just enjoyed any aspect of our show. Thank you for taking the time out to do that. Have a really blessed Eid. We all hope you gained something from our show during Ramadan. And again, thanks to all our guests. Thanks to Dr. Tamara Gray. Thank you to our other guests, our friends, Sami and Omar. Thank you to Cube Publishing. Thank you to everyone else who I've forgotten to mention. Remember, all our shows are available to listen back to on the Ramadan FM Facebook. Ramadan reading retreats. We had a different theme for every week. So please do listen back. We've done reviews on 5 books, and we've also had some children's show reviews in there on top of that, and we hope we've really inspired you to pick up a book and learn something new. Jazakallah khair for listening. Eid Mubarak when it comes, and thank you for listening to our show. Bye. Allah Hafiz.
Ramadan.